Okay. Okay. Welcome everybody to Project Seal. I'm Brent. I am one of the leads on the project. Um, so if you're completely unfamiliar with what we're doing, your job is to write tough research-heavy prompts that have one verifiable answer. And your goal is to make the models fail, and then we're going to use your prompts to train the models and hopefully make them better at web search and things like that. The biggest places they struggle today is taking too long to find an answer. They will confidently return the wrong answer, or they just can't find it at all. Um, so your work will, it feels like, improve the model daily based on some of the things we've seen. The models are getting better every single day. Um, so your work is directly impacting that. Very important how pay works. You will get paid when your task reaches the ready to deliver stage. And let's just go through the pipeline now so I can show you what that looks like. So you'll submit your task. It'll enter the auto eval stage. We're going to run your prompt against the model 8 times. The model needs to fail on 4 out of 8 attempts for it to advance to human review. So um, keep that in mind. It's a little bit, we ask for 2 out of 3 on your runs, and then that way we pretty much can guarantee that it'll fail in 4 out of 8 if we get the 2 out of 3 on your end. Um, After the auto eval, it'll go to review one, which is a human reviewer. They'll check the work, give you actionable feedback if there are things that need to change. If not, it'll move on to review two, which is like, a little bit a deeper pass, a little bit more in depth, and then once they pass your task, it'll reach audit, which is just the final spot check. Dotting the i's, crossing the t's, and then it'll reach ready to deliver, which is when we're ready to deliver it to the customer, and that's when you'll get paid out for your task. Um, at any point, it gets sent back to you. You should receive actionable feedback, and it should be very clear why it got sent back. If not, if you're confused, you can reach out in Slack or come to any of the workshops or the office hours, and we can give you some more clarity on why your task got returned to you. And to add on, we can talk about the role progression really quick. Um, so everyone starts off as a tasker. If you do good work, you have good fundamentals, you're consistently producing like high level, high quality prompts, you can be promoted to a reviewer. I mean, if you want to be. Um, that has some certain incentives, reviewer only incentives occasionally, like bonuses. You get paid hourly instead of per task, so it's $40 an hour as a reviewer, and you're pretty much unlimited. Once you're unthrottled as a reviewer, you're unlimited in the number of reviews you can do as long as you're keeping the quality high. Um, and we're actively looking for good reviewers. So if that's something you're interested in, uh, please keep that in mind. And we'll have an assessment as well um, that you can take if you just kind of want to skip the tasker role completely, or you just want to jump straight to a reviewer. If you pass the assessment, we'll promote you to a reviewer. Uh, if that's something you're interested in. Yeah, so we're looking for like high quality, consistent quality, knowing the rules, which is very important if you're going to be a reviewer, obviously, knowing what we expect and what we're looking for in our tasks. Being reliable. We try to have a good turnaround time on the tasks. 12 hours is what we shoot for, but you really no more than 24 hours from when a reviewer claims the task. We would try to get it back to you. Um, and obviously, consistent, respectful behavior. Um, I would prefer it if we didn't have to put this on here, but we do, unfortunately. Uh, this should be a given, I would imagine, but it's not. Okay, so what I think we'll do is we'll go over the ground rules, and then instead of like going through the workflow and full examples, we'll go through this step by step, and then we'll come back here and take a look at this and see how it all ties together. Okay, so uh, Hamed, you can do extra high in the meantime. Um, you ran out of pro, and I'll give you guys some tips on how to uh, preserve your tokens a little bit. Um, but in the meantime, you can run on extra high, and that's like a close approximation. Not quite the same, but close enough for now until we get you back. It should only be the 11th. Yeah, usually it runs out for about a week. Um, okay, so um, we're looking for factual questions only, and your prompts need to be questions, like end with a question mark, not a set of instructions that you're giving the model to follow. It needs to be an actual question, and it has to be factual, nothing subjective, no opinion based questions, nothing that doesn't have a real verifiable answer. We're looking for short, specific answers. A name, a year, a number, a date, short phrase. Um, we don't, for the actual answer itself, we don't want an explanation or like the reasoning involved. It just needs to be the answer. Um, yeah, we're the 5x is what we're reimbursing you for. So, yeah, if you already have the 20x, that should be fine. And you'll just get the reimbursement for the value of the 5x. So that shouldn't be a problem. It'll just show up automatically um, once you get a task ready to deliver. Um, so the best method is really to find your answer first and work backwards. Otherwise, it's much, much harder to write a prompt that actually works. The bulk of your time will be, in my opinion, should be spent finding your source and finding a tough source for the model to work through, or maybe even multiple tough sources to increase your chances of fooling the model. Um, it's really hard to write a prompt in like chronological order or sequentially because you don't really know where you're going. And it makes it really tough to actually write something that works. So it's always best to start at the end and work backwards. Start with your source and work backwards, your final source. All of your URLs that you access along the path need to be not behind a paywall. Not a broken link, obviously. Something that doesn't require a login or a subscription. Nothing that's like cached only. Um, a good little test is to open it in an incognito window. Does it work there? Um, then you know it's probably good. No plagiarism. Uh, please do not use any of the uh, prompts in this playbook. Don't use anything you found somewhere else. Don't use prompts that you've used in other Handshake projects. And please do not use LLMs. It's honestly, LLMs are really bad at these kind of tasks, and it's very, very obvious when it's been written by an LLM and when it's not your own original work. We've seen it all. So we have automated checks, and also uh, we have experience in seeing what these kind of prompts look like. So they're not going to work. So please, please, please use your own original work. Um, be honest in the test evidence. We are asking you to do some of this off platform. So there is a level of integrity that we're asking from you in terms of reporting your results. So don't cherry pick the runs. You could theoretically run it 10 times and pick the 2 times it failed. Um, I mean, you could do that, but it's going to eat up your tokens and it's probably not going to pass the automated check. So you're just going to waste your time. So I would not recommend doing that. No yes or no, true or false, or binary questions. Your prompt should not, the question in your prompt should not end up being yes or no, true, false, something that the model can just guess. Um, that's not really testing. It's research or reasoning. It's just really a coin flip at that point. So it needs to be a verifiable answer, not something that is going to be a true or false or yes or no type of question. Um, every question should have a defensible answer, a verifiable answer. There should not be, if there's any debate over what the correct answer is, it's probably, you cannot use non-English sources. That should probably be in the rules as well. Make a note of that. Yeah, English only sources. Where was I? Yes, your question should have a defensible answer, or excuse me, yeah, you should have a defensible answer, and there should be no debate over that answer. There should be no viable alternatives. If there is a reasonable argument for a different answer than what you have, then it's not a good final question. It should be completely unambiguous as to what the correct answer is. And then please work on one submission at a time. Um, if you have a task get sent back to you and you're already working on another one, please focus on the task that got sent back and make the requested revisions before uh, finishing, other tasks. Yeah, and no LLM generated questions. It's very, very obvious usually. Um, and I'm going to go through this step by step first, and we can come back and look at the workflow, the overall workflow later, and see how it all ties together. So, um, the first thing you're going to do is write the prompt. Um, uh, you can okay, in the meantime you can use extra high if you got limited already on your pro. It's like a decent enough approximation. It's not exact, but it's close enough in the meantime until you get your usage back. Um, are you allowed to? Yeah, yeah, you are. I mean, provided like it's not a guarantee that it will. The question is, are you allowed to submit a task on extra high? And the answer is yes. Um, and it's like I said, it's a good enough approximation. Not guaranteed that the 8 models will uh, it'll get past the 8 models, but um, it's close enough that like if you got 3 out of 3 but wrong on extra high, yeah, just like Eric is saying, it's more risky. It's less likely to get past the 8 models. So just keep that in mind. But it's fine to actually submit with extra high. Okay, so for the requirements, we were looking for 70 to 150 words. Please try to stick to this as much as possible. You can be off by a little bit. Is there a limit on the number of URLs? No, but try to keep it reasonable if you can, because there is still a human element to this of reviewing it and fact checking everything. So just keep that in mind. And in general, we found that it doesn't really add to the difficulty for the models by stacking a bunch of constraints or URLs. Um, but there's no official limit as of right now. Um, yeah, the minimum, yeah, it's I understand what you're saying, Henry. Yeah, you're just adding some things to fit the requirements. It's just more of a requirement from the customer than from for breaking the model. Like that's just what they're looking for. So they want something in this length. Yeah, you can use whatever ChatGPT account you want. The reimbursement will come to your PDFs are acceptable sources. Let me get through some of this, and some of these questions will be answered as we go through. Okay, so your prompt should require at least 3 distinct URL sources to answer. One defensible, unambiguous answer, completely unambiguous. There should be no debate over what the exact answer is. Um, yeah, and then the domain thing is fairly new, as in like the last day or two. So you can filter by domain, and it's okay for your prompt to be cross domain and cover other topics as long as the final question ends up in this domain. So you can start somewhere else, but as long as you end up the final question is in that category, it's totally fine. Okay, so let's go through how to write the prompt. The core idea is the answer should be hard to find, hard to reach, hard to read even, but each clue, each step should be easy to verify um, in terms of finding the information. Maybe not the actual time it takes to research it, but for a reviewer's perspective, they should have all the resources that you've used so they can quickly verify your facts. Um, and the best way to do that is to start by going backwards. Start from the answer and then build a question from there. So let's see. Yeah, hard to reach facts tend to live in places that are public but poorly indexed. We found a lot of success so far. Excuse me, a lot of success so far with older documents, older PDFs that are huge, that maybe don't get OCR'd correctly all the way, and then the model has to screenshot it and try to OCR itself. And OCR means something recognition. I don't remember exactly, but it's when it's basically taking an image and transcribing the text from the image into actual text. And we'll go into a little bit more in depth with that in a bit. Excuse me. Okay, so some examples of that are like a very specific stat that only appears once in a long report, and preferably it only appears in that report and nowhere else in the internet. That really increases your chances of model failure because if it can't find the answer somewhere else, it has to use your source. It's gonna be more likely to struggle. Same, a name or figure, same concept. An old poorly indexed web page that the models might struggle to find. Um, yeah, it shouldn't be obvious. If your final answer is on like Wikipedia, it's gonna solve that in 2 seconds. So it needs to be the more niche, the better. So if you have like, think about your personal interests and things that you know about and things that maybe are very niche about that. That's a good place to start. Okay, so let's talk about working backwards. Um, yeah, facts that are verifiable on the web and maybe not obvious on their own. There are ways you can do that. Converging. So you have two or more clues or constraints. But you kind of use clues and constraints interchangeably. Um, that when on their own or maybe ambiguous and could apply to many different things, people, places, dates, or whatever. But when combined, they resolve down to one thing. Or you can chain them together, which is what I like to do a lot of the time. One fact leads to the next, where you have to have each step in the chain to get to the final answer. You have to solve everything to actually get to the final answer. So here's some examples. Um, you could follow a person. You could, talk about the roles they've held, people they're related to in some way, awards they've won, birthplace, birth date, death date, things like that, marriage dates. You can follow an organization, through name changes, founding docs or founders, different filings, follow a location. So like its venue history, municipal records, geographic neighbors, which change. So there could be some issues with timelessness there. So you'd want to pin a geographic neighbor potentially to a specific date and time because that can change over time. Follow the time. So concurrent events, things that happened on the exact same day, month, year, seasonal records like sports, filings that happened around or on the same date. Um, Cross identity link, people who have multiple roles, like uh, for example, there is a basketball referee that also was like a baseball umpire for like two games. So, asking something about the cross identity link and to narrow it down to that specific person. It's a pretty unique set of qualifiers. Yeah, and when those constraints are combined, all the constraints are combined together, it should be one unambiguous answer. Um, Although I know this is keep stacking, keep stacking if it helps you resolve it down to one answer. Don't keep stacking just to keep stacking because it's just gonna be more work for you and maybe not actually fool the model. Um, okay, so we'll go into this in more depth about what is valid and what isn't. But it should be text, um, either highlightable or findable directly in the page's HTML. So no images, graphs, charts are out of bounds. But anything that's actually in text form is pretty much okay. And we'll go into more depth in a bit about what is okay and what isn't. Um, a good test is if by the end of your prompt, are there other possible answers that you could defend? If it's yes, then you need to adjust the prompt in some way. Um, okay, we have prompt rule checklist. This is new, I think. Okay, we can go back to that later. Okay, let's look at some of the common mistakes. You pick something that's like super easy to find, something that surfaces on the first search. Yeah, anything that's like on Wikipedia or like you have to Google, you can Google. It's probably not going to be tough enough for the model. If any of you have started, testing this and tried to write prompts, you can see how insanely good this model is at specifically research, which is what it's designed to do. So it takes some doing, and if it's super obvious, it's going to solve it in 30 seconds. We were on maybe some of you were on the breadcrumb project before this, and some of the prompts, it was a very similar project, but the models were not as advanced. And some of the prompts from that project, we were testing them here, and the model solves them in like less than 2 minutes. So it's very, very good. But we have tools to help you actually, get the get your prompt uh, past the post and into ready to deliver. Um, yeah, constraints that don't converge your chain. Um, you don't really need to turn something into a constraint if it's not actually doing any work. So, if you have a constraint about someone's profession and like their year of birth, and like that alone resolves to that person, you don't need to add other things to other constraints or clues around that person, uh, because it's not going to do anything. It's unnecessary. It's already been resolved to that person. So, and it'll waste your time in coming up with things that aren't actually necessary to solve the prompt. Um, Need at least three distinct sources, and that means top level domains. So three unique top level domains. Um, yeah, and to clarify, like Henry, what you said earlier, like really we're more worried about prompts that are too long than too short. So um, obviously we don't want it too short. And like these are not necessarily like hard limits, but if you go too far in either direction, it'll probably get sent back, especially if you go over. Uh, we prefer them to be shorter than longer. Um, yeah, and then path that leaks the answer. So, if you give away too much in your prompt, the model will literally try to work backwards. It will take everything you've given it and simultaneously try to test every answer that it thinks could be possible against your other constraints, and until it almost brute forces it into the correct answer. So try not to be too descriptive, too exact in your prompting, because it will take everything you give it and try to speed run the prompt. So keep that in mind. There's some quality checks. So okay. I no, this is not Project Box. This is its own thing. This is I'm not even 100% sure what Project Box is. Okay. So what is valid versus invalid? This is really, really important because this is maybe the number one question I get asked or uh, people are wondering about. So this is super important. Um, what is valid? So it needs to be stable, freely accessible, and reputable. Um, so things like Wikipedia articles are okay. Government pages, archive reports like .gov, that's always going to be authoritative usually. Um, Dated news articles at a permanent URL, those are pretty static. That they don't really change. SEC filings, any kind of like government documents are going to be uh, pretty much unchanging. Well, they are going to be unchanging, but should be hosted in the same spot. Um, University catalogs, course pages, those are static things. Studies, peer-reviewed, encyclopedic references, things on PubMed. Um, those are all like great, valid sources. Um, you should ask yourself, like, is this an authoritative source to pull information from? Because the model might prove your source wrong. It might have better. It might do some research and figure out that what you think the answer is actually incorrect. So try to have an authoritative source so you can avoid that. And then what is not valid? So that anything that requires an actual download. So if it's a PDF but it downloads it to your PC, then you can't use that. But if it's hosted online, then it is okay. Anything that 404s, direct links to Google search results. If the URL points to the wrong source, or like the fact that you're supposed to be verifying isn't even in that URL, obviously we don't want that, which is kind of similar to the next bullet point or almost identical. Um, the intermediate or final answer doesn't appear in the page's HTML, or you can't highlight it. And I'll, oh yeah, we have the next step. We'll go into even more detail on this. So, yeah, if it doesn't load an incognito tab, or if it's paywalled, requires a login, if it's a video or social media, Grokpedia, which we've had a couple times, anything LLM generated, not going to be okay. Um, Home pages, live dashboards, leaderboards, stock tickers, anything that's showing something current and up to date that's going to auto update or change daily or weekly is not going to be okay because it's going to change the answer depending on when you look at it. And like Google Docs, Sheets, Drive links, um, then the Wayback Machine and archive.org snapshots, and specifically the snapshots. Other things on archive.org are okay. It's just the snapshots in particular that are invalid. Um, okay. So this is also very, very useful. This is an extension of two valid URLs. So a lot of questions about, is this source okay? Um, so the rule is, if you use Google Chrome or I think Safari, maybe some other browsers. I know Firefox in particular does not automatically OCR text, but Chrome will. If like you have a PDF open and you click on it, it will start to OCR or transcribe it for you, and then you can highlight it. So if you can highlight the text, it's fair game. If you cannot highlight the text, it is not fair game. So in this case, you can see you can highlight this, but the text in the badge is baked in. So anything that would refer to this badge or specifically, something about this would not work. Um, you have to be able to highlight it or inspect it. This is an either or. You don't need both of these. You just need one or the other. And then you can also inspect the page if what you're looking for is in the HTML. Can you find it in the HTML? Then it's also okay. Yeah, and if you're ever in doubt, please feel free to ask in the channels or come to a workshop or office hours. I'd be more than happy to give you some clarity. Okay, some rules when you're writing the answer. We're looking for an atomic format only, so that might be a little bit confusing. Um, what that means is a reviewer should be able to look at the answer, the model responses, and know immediately if it's correct or incorrect against your answer. So, no explanations, alternatives, hedges. It should be basically correct or incorrect when looking at it. Um, and please double, triple, quadruple check that there is only one defensible answer. Because if your prompt is ambiguous or written in a way where multiple valid interpretations could be correct, then the model could produce a defensible answer that does not match your answer, which would not be a valid model failure. Uh, yeah, we don't want an explanation. You don't need to explain why for the answer section for the write the answer section. Don't need to explain why the answer is that. Just need the answer. And again, no binary, true, false, yes, no questions, and no prompts without a single defensible answer. Yeah, I can. We'll definitely go over. We'll go over like a full example in a bit of a prompt that worked, and then right after this, we're going to do a tasking workshop and be go into more detail or ask like answer any specific questions you might have. Are you allowed to use the same website domain? Not the same specific source? Yeah, you can use the same top level domain as many times as you want. Um, to an extent. There are some frame sites or frameworks that get banned just because we know the model struggles with it. So we need a very varied data set. So we would ask that fellows use different sources. But yeah, until you could use the same domain until you hear differently. Um, so here's some examples of what the answer should look like. Um, you know, just the answer. We don't need any additional detail. That's not what we're asking from the models. Um, and in these examples, about 42 or so, or sometime in March, these are bad because they're ambiguous. If your answer is about 42 or so, and the model gives you 40, that's kind of a defensible answer because you're this is not exact. So um, we want an exact verifiable answer, not something that has any level of ambiguity in it. There's some common mistakes again, and there's these little checks as we go through as well. If you want to go through this on your own. Um, okay, so what counts as a valid failure and what doesn't? Um, really, what counts as a failure is an incorrect answer or no answer. Um, this isn't quite correct, depending on the interpretation of this. If a model gets your an answer wrong because it did some math wrong, that's not valid unless the values it used were incorrect because it could not solve the constraint. It did not use the proper value. So, like a model somehow getting like some basic arithmetic wrong is not a valid model failure unless the values it used were not the correct values, if that makes sense. Um, Valid failure is also, yeah, if it can't get to the URL, this is like a really good way. Um, URLs that the model struggles to even access, or PDFs that are like too large for it to even comprehend, are great ways to trip it up. What doesn't count as failure are like minor rounding or unit differences. If they're equivalent, that doesn't count. Abbreviations, um, failures that are caused by a prompt that's ambiguous, which is like the number one reason a task will get sent back, is that there are multiple valid interpretations of the answer based on the way the prompt is written. Um, if the model gets the final answer correct, but its reasoning steps are incorrect, that doesn't count as a failure. We're really only concerned with the final answer, the final output. Um, yeah, this is kind of like contradictory, a little bit incorrect due to counting error, failure caused by arithmetic. Um, I believe the intention of this is to be more of like if you're asking for a position in the list or something, and it pulls the wrong value from that list, that's valid. But I believe that's what that's meant to convey. But uh, an arithmetic failure does not count. So if you do get failures, you should definitely investigate um, why it failed and check the model's work. Um, Look at its sources, look at its reasoning. You might find out that it's actually correct and your source is wrong, outdated, or just you misinterpreted, some scientific paper, and you think you're asking one thing, but you're actually asking another thing, and the model uh, figures it out and gives you a different answer than you expect, and it's actually right. And we've actually had cases where we were asking for a specific sports stat, and we thought the model was incorrect, but we double checked, and the model had taken all the games in question, counted it itself, and collected the stats. And it turns out the database that we were looking at was actually wrong. So the model was actually more correct than the source. So you definitely want to investigate um, and be absolutely sure that the model is incorrect. Um, I would to go back to the usage thing and running out of credits. I would not recommend running all three attempts all at the same time every time you run a prompt, or you're going to run out of credits really really fast. I would run one at a time because you probably going to have to iterate and figure out what works. So if you run it three times every single time you run a prompt, you're going to run out really really fast. So try to be judicious. You could run it on extra high if you want to get a sense of how it's doing, but I would definitely I would definitely run it once. That's what I've always done. I'll run the first one, and if it does fail or I think it's going to fail, then I'll do the other two at the same time. Because generally I feel like if I get one failure, I'm pretty confident, based on the sources that I choose. I'm pretty confident that I will get another failure or two more failures. Generally, most of mine have been 3 out of 3 failures. Um, yeah, there's more common mistakes. Oh yeah, and when you are, uh, putting your prompt in the chat, you want it to be just the prompt. You don't want any instructions or anything. Just the prompt that you're going to submit. Nothing extra. No extra instructions. Okay. So, um, in the task itself, you're going to see. Um, okay, I can't. I'll do this some other time. You'll see a section where you want the model response. You'll just press that button right there. It'll copy it to your clipboard. You can paste it in, and it'll also copy all the formatting, the markdown. It'll keep the links, which is really nice for us. So we want that button right here, and then also the chat share link. We'll need a link to the actual chat. You just click this right here. It'll copy it to your clipboard, so then we can have our own version of this chat, which is nice, and we can see everything. We can see all the same things. And if we really wanted to, we could continue on that chat on our own version. Um, yeah, doing the actual task is not super difficult. Filling out the task, I should say. Most of your time will be spent researching and iterating on your prompt. The golden trajectory. This is new. This is the way it's going to be going forward. So if you've already started or submitted some tasks, this is a little bit different than what you've been doing before. But this is probably exactly how it's going to be going forward, or maybe slightly changed. But but this is what you should get used to. Um, so you want the golden trajectory to be a step-by-step in order of how you got to each fact, how you verified the facts, and how you would solve the prompt. Um, it's going to, you're going to include the URL. So let's look at the format. You're going to include the URL and then how you got there, the search query you used, the links clicked, the navigation path, filters, which are allowed. I've gotten clarity on. It is okay to do like drop down filters to get to your answer. Um, there's no limit to number of actions, but just as long as you include enough context for the reviewer. Um, yeah, so you want to step one, how you got to the URL. Step two, what the URL is for, what the URL actually is, and then what constraint you're verifying. So Wikipedia.com is used to verify whatever. Um, you know, the year Barack Obama was elected president for the first time, and then you'll say exactly where on that page the uh, the third paragraph of the the election heading or something. Um, you don't have to get as granular as like sentence number, but paragraph number, heading, row and column, if it's a table, any kind of labels, um, PDF page number, but also we would like the printed document page number as well. Um, so ideally you include both, but um, just the PDF page number would be okay as well. Um, and then you want to, explain any reasoning that might go along with this, or why this filters the candidates down, or how it connects to the rest of the prompt. And keep in mind that the golden trajectory is aimed at the reviewer. So try to be cognizant of the fact that this is for the person reviewing your task, so they can follow your logic, verify the steps, make sure everything checks out, everything is like factually true. Um, oh wow. Okay, everything is factual, and then they can quickly check and verify the facts without having to research the entire thing on their own. So just keep that in mind that it's focused at the reviewer. Yeah, see, reviewers trace each fact plus URL one by one, so they need to be able to follow your reasoning. Um, here's a good example. This is from a prompt that I wrote. Um, you can look at this. It just, you know, I lay out the search terms, the URL I used, what I clicked on, and what I'm verifying. The only season that matches this criteria from the prompt, or the specific season. Excuse me, and then um, yeah, Henry, it's not. It's fine. Um, I wouldn't stress too much about it. But as long as you have something that makes sense, it's gonna be okay. Um, or if you can use stuff that, you can take things from intermediate steps and include those in the search terms. So it should ideally be from the prompt, and then any information you uncover um, while you're doing the research. But really, it's more about the navigation steps, um, and how you got there, and what you did once you got there, what you clicked on, what you filtered, how you ended up at the final URL. Okay, this is just a checklist of kind of everything through here. There's time. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll go to some of the quick or the most common errors as fast as possible, because um, we're we have about 10 minutes left ish. Um, oh wait. Okay, I don't think that's supposed to be there. Um, I would say, yeah, most sendbacks are due to ambiguity. So you're achieving model failure because the prompt is confusing, and the model assumes you mean one thing when you actually mean another, which actually makes the model's answer defensible. Um, so an example, meet me near the coffee shop soon. Um, this is maybe a strange example, but um, like what is near? What does near mean in this context? Is that across the street, the same block, the same neighborhood? That's kind of vague. The coffee shop, which one? There could be more than one, and soon. When is soon? So you can see how like none of these are really verifiable, concrete things that you could pin anything to. You would need outside context for this to make sense. So you want things that clues or constraints that are verifiable. Here's a list of some words that are like vague or unclear. Um, how many is many? How often is often? These frequency phrases, um, significant, major, key, important, by what metric, by to whom. Okay. Um, yeah, and these are all kind of like modifiers that are potentially subjective. So, or could be, or could vary depending on who's reporting it or who's asking. Um, So yeah, unclear relationship, like linked to, associated with, tied to, influenced by. Those are tough because it's not clear what the relationship is. So try to be explicit instead of saying these words. Like, explain the association or how it's tied to. And, influenced by is tough, unless you have a very clear source where maybe that person is specifically saying that. Um, time sensitive answers. This is another one. Timelessness. Everything should be, think about if you read the prompt in 5 years, will it still make sense? And if the answer is no, you should change the language so that it does. So, the head coach of, the 2007 season, the CEO of McDonald's in 2012 or whatever, um, so that it's pinned to a specific date and that will be timeless. Um, Non-verified claims. So like the best-selling novel of the 2010s, again, by what metric is best-selling? Where there are a lot of ways this could be interpreted differently. So you could pin it to a source like the New York Times bestsellers list, which will be very specific, and that you have the right novel in that case. And an unclear question format, very similar. What metric are we talking about? Talking about how long something is. What does that mean? Time, distance, duration. Um, this is this is literally like brand new as of a couple hours ago. So um, I haven't had a chance to look through this completely, but I think this is useful. This is something similar that we had to on Breadcrumb that kind of shows you how an ambiguous prompt can lead to two different candidate answers based on how you interpret it. So you can see there's two different interpretations, and how it can lead to two possible answers, which is not what we want. So instead of saying, yeah, published in 2021, we say October 2021. So we narrow things down. A famous condor study of California condor, reshaped understanding. I don't know what the context is for that. Um, in journal, like, so these are all very specific things. Maybe potentially too specific for the model. It'll, find it right away. But this is the idea of you want to be clear in your constraints and not leave it open to interpretation to lead to multiple answers. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Okay, I am almost out of time, unfortunately. I won't have time to go through a full example, but some of these examples, but If you want to hop over to the workshop, I can answer any specific questions, and I'll go over some things that work for me, things that I've done, um, go into more depth about um, what works and what doesn't work. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer? I know it's a lot. I try to get through as much as I can and have it make as much sense as possible. So if there's anything that didn't make sense or you have questions about, please feel free. I have a couple minutes. I can answer any questions.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so since there's like a minimum of 70 words and we are able to get something that seems to be stumping it pretty well in less than 70 words, what should we do temporarily? Because I think adding extra would only complicate it for reviewers and because you're kind of distracting from what's actually causing it to be stumped. So what should we do
Yeah.
if we do get something that's shorter and seems to be stumping it quite well?
I would just maybe build a constraint depending on what your prompt looks like. If you have a specific year or some kind of like fact that you can just pin a constraint around. So like it doesn't even have to be super complex. So if you have a year, yeah, simple clues, like Henry's saying, you can just say in the year that XYZ thing happened.
Gotcha.
That's the easiest way to add a little bit of length to the prompt and make it fit the requirements.
Sounds good. And another thing, so if I were to use databases like, I don't know, Uniprot, for example, which require like a lot of knowledge behind like what all the information means, are those kind of like fair game as long as you can't obviously explain it within the prompt itself, but you can kind of explain it in the for the reviewers afterwards, right? Is that fair game?
Yeah, that's totally fair game. Yeah, as long as the reviewer can understand what they're looking for and like why the answer is correct, that's totally fine. Um, it just has to make sense for the reviewer so that they know, they don't want to, they have like zero context going into it. So as much context as possible, the better.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, Emily, so for the categories, really all that matters is that the final question ends up in that domain. So you can go across multiple domains as long as you end up in the assigned domain. It's fine. You can start somewhere else completely and end up wherever the domain takes you. Oops. Okay. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. Hopefully this was helpful to everyone. If you have more questions, please hop over to the tasking workshop. I'll be there for I think we're doing 2 hours again tonight. Yeah, hopefully see you all there. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, please come over to the workshop and we'll go into more depth and it'll be I can give you some individual attention. So, all right, thanks everyone. I will see you later.